Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world, recording from the parking lot of a Menards in Portage, Indiana. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterman, and we take this show on the road.
This is quite a plot twist. I remember when you visited me when I was still living in Indiana, and we had the conversation of, when I leave Indiana, when will you ever be in Indiana again? And you were like, I don't think ever. I'll never come back to this state ever. And here we are, not all that much longer. I am not even in Indiana anymore. I am back home in Ohio. We were just in Phoenix, Arizona not long ago, but we have returned farther east, I guess. You certainly are not home yet, but the show rolls on. On this episode, we will be reviewing the Rickwood Classic from last night. I watched a good chunk of it on my flight home, which was kind of a surreal experience for a lot of reasons. And of course, there are all kinds of clips from before the game that we kind of caught up on. So we'll mainly talk about that. We got an interview with Iowa righty Brody Brecht, one of our favorite conversations of the week. Just a fascinating trajectory for him. And we think, as far as, MLB draft prospects that we talk to, that anyone should be compelled by with the draft coming up next month. I think he's near the top of the list, so you'll hear that. And then it is Friday. We will do the good, the bad, and the ugly. But Jake, let's head to Birmingham. I know neither of us were there. I know neither of us got to watch it in full live because of our travel. But this was something that I got to watch a little bit on the plane. But this was a very, very special night. Of course, this week and this game was going to be about Willie Mays anyway. It really ended up being an incredibly emotional and powerful tribute to his life, his career, his experience at Rickwood Field. So I guess I'll just start with that obvious part, right? I mean, having his son there, having Barry Bonds there, it was really a pretty remarkable thing to watch even. And I'm sure in person it was all the more powerful.
Now, Willie passed away this week at the age of 93, but, talking to people about Rickwood and its connection to Willie, like, he was considering trying to come as recently as like a week, 2 weeks ago. Right. And I think that's what makes it all the more heavy and all the more shocking and all the more emotional, right? Is Willie Mays, for everybody, basically everybody who is alive and cares about baseball, has always been there, right? He has been omnipresent even after his playing career was over. But during his playing career, I mean, this guy played for 23 seasons. He was in every single All-Star game. And so for a lot of people, when you turned on the television and you watched baseball, like, Willie Mays was a fundamental part of that. And as the oldest living Hall of Famer, he was like, we didn't hear from him a lot, but you knew he was there. And, I think it's incredibly powerful that, there was a chance if he had made it to yesterday and he had the strength, he absolutely would have been there. He really, truly did want to be there. What's interesting about this particular game, I actually want to zoom out and disconnect the Negro League specific Rickwood aspects of it for just a quick second. Sure. And just chat about the idea of these special event games. The jewel events, as the jewel events. Them. Yep. Mm-hmm. Again, you know how much I love Rob Manfred. This is one of the best things that MLB has done under his tenure. I'm not talking about Rickwood specifically or the Field of Dreams, but taking the show on the road, right? Yep. I saw a couple tweets from Randy Jazirli about how MLB's most unique asset as a product is actually the number of games it has, right? We play 162 as a sport. We play 81 and 81. That means teams can relatively afford to do a bunch of games in interesting places. The NFL is a little bit different. They play 17 games now. I know they do the London stuff, but I think Randy's spot on. I think the more of these, the better. Anything to break up the flow, the relative monotony of an MLB season, to bring this sport to new places and new people is an unbelievably simple, yet complicated logistically, way to grow the game.
Yeah. And I think it is, in some ways, it's of course bringing it to places where they have not previously had a Major League Baseball game, and that's cool. But to me, it's also just the novelty of it. There is a charm in the very basic sense, and we've talked about attending the Little League Classic before, of Major League Baseball in a field without an upper deck. Like when you see Major League Baseball being played and the camera pans and it's just one level of seats. This is another thing, particularly in Williamsport. Beyond the outfield wall is literally just like a house. Like there's the neighborhood is right there. I don't think that dynamic was quite in play here in Rickwood, but to just have the highest level of our sport appearing in these places that means so much, but which I think brings us back to this one in particular, right? Because this one carried so much more weight for so many reasons than anything else that we have seen before for any of these other events, right? Sure, it's cool to play a game in the cornfield. We obviously love playing a game in Williamsport in front of a bunch of little leaguers. There have been other, special events and going to different countries. Those are all good, and I hope we continue to push for those, right? But like this event in this place that means so much to so many people for very good reasons and for very bad reasons, which we can get into, I think was especially powerful, and I think why MLB does deserve credit for making this happen and making this possible.
Right, and that's the balance, right? Is not congratulating MLB, right, but like giving MLB a little bit of credit for doing this type of game while also acknowledging all the things that MLB has done in its past to create the need for the Negro Leagues in the first place.
Sure.
Right. Now, I understand it's not like Rob Manfred did that, right? But this is, I really want to emphasize this. This is not a story that's over, right? Black baseball players are about, the percentage of players in the major leagues is much lower than it was 25, 30 years ago. That has been well documented. We saw that on the field last night with only one Black American player, Mason Wynn, appearing in the game. That that in and of itself is a unmissable reminder that we are not done here, right? What I like about putting the game in Birmingham is that it forced MLB and it forced Fox on the broadcast and it forced everybody, by everybody I mean like white people, to reckon with the two sides of what this is. You cannot do a Negro League specific game without jumping headlong into the inequality and the horrors of racism in the South, right? It's unavoidable. And I think anytime that can be on a national stage in front of a national audience on Fox, that is a positive development.
Yeah.
Right. And so I like as an educational experience, like I really enjoyed a lot of that aspect, and all the stories that have come out of having this event have been nothing but good in terms of like learning more about what the Negro Leagues was.
100%. And the two parts about that from the standpoint that you're referring to is particularly challenging, but also crucial. And then I'm going to give one that's a little bit more positive, but in a similar sense, is of course the clip of Reggie Jackson talking on the pregame show with Derek Jeter, with the desk, right, with Kevin Burkhardt and David Ortiz and all them, right, talking about his experience playing in Birmingham in the minor leagues. This is something that is in Reggie Jackson's very long, incredible career. This was the very early stages of his rise to stardom, and that was in the face of horrific racism and him explaining what it was like to be living and playing baseball as a high profile, Black athlete at that time is horrible and horrifying. But it's important, and that's why playing a game in Birmingham is so important and so valuable. There's no ducking it, right? You can't pretend like that's part of the story. Not only is it part of the story, it is the story. I mean, that's the whole point. And so while now, of course, in 2024, while there's clearly still work to do in a baseball context, in a society context, of course, there is a lot to be uplifted by and to be empowered by and to be excited by and to be inspired by with the people on the field, and how far a lot of these have come, and to see players that played on the Birmingham Black Barons get to attend this game is so incredible. But that is why it's so important to have to play a game here. You can't duck any of it. And for Reggie to be willing to share those experiences was obviously very powerful.
I mean, the pain in the stories he told was still raw.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And a lot of time has passed, and also no time has passed. Right? This is relatively not that long ago. I saw someone tweet, like, Reggie Jackson had teammates who played with Albert Pujols.
Right.
This is more recent than we think. And I think what I appreciated most about what Reggie said is how blunt it was. Like, he went on national TV and dropped a hard R. Like, you don't see that, really. You know what I mean? And that is something that made me, as a white person, like uncomfortable in a positive way. And I understand that it's not about me and like us. Like I get that. But I'm saying like the way that Reggie talked is like you cannot avoid it, right? I don't want to say performance, but like his comments ensured that this would not be a bland, whitewashed celebration of nostalgia, right? Because you cannot do nostalgia here. It's like, I think I mentioned this before, the Taylor Swift lyric, like, I wish we could go back to the 1880s without the racism. Like, you can't do that. This is part of the fabric of baseball history, for worse, right? For worse. And I really appreciated the bluntness with which Reggie communicated his feelings. And I'm very thankful that that we got to witness something like that.
And I will say my final thought, again, going back and watching some of those clips, and well, I will say quickly, Barry Bonds being there and being on the pregame show and taking part in kind of the pregame stuff. Listen, like, this is what he is not someone that is going to go out of his way to be on TV for a lot of reasons. But when you listen to him talk about Willie Mays ever since his whole life, it is not an accident that he was going to make sure that he was available and make sure, like, obviously not just available, but like that he was going to lend his voice and be out there and be on the pregame show and be interviewed for the broadcast and be all these things was particularly powerful. But I do want to spin it more towards back to the broadcast and all the little touches that the Fox broadcast did, which, shouts out to our former employer. I think they did do quite a good job with this. But the thing that really stood out to me from just a positive, just uplifting thing, and we talk about a national spotlight, we talk about it in the context of Reggie's comments, where it's like, it is so important for him to be able to say things like that on national television in 2024.
And just one last thing on that, like, for Reggie, people like Reggie and Willie who have been forced to shoulder that burden.
Sure.
You can see that this is not something he at all looks back on with fond memories.
No.
Right. And I think that's a really crucial part of it. Yeah.
For sure. But I will say, in terms of national spotlight on this world and these times in a positive way, Bob Kendrick being on national TV is the best. And there were thousands of people last night that heard, even though Bob Kendrick is, of course, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, who has been very much over the last decade, has absolutely become more of a public figure in the baseball space. But it is still relatively small stages here and there. Of course, he's had these amazing podcasts. We've been lucky enough to have him on our show. Of course, we've seen with the Negro Leagues kind of becoming a lot more. We've talked about it with stats being integrated, all these different things. But there were so many people that heard Bob Kendrick for the first time last night. And that is really, really cool. And like, I am jealous of the people that get to experience Bob Kendrick hearing a story for the first time. And everyone tweeting, this guy should tell stories, and every broadcast. Yeah, you're right. He is one of the most captivating communicators I have ever witnessed. And that stage for him in a very complicated, challenging time with the passing of Willie Mays, but also an incredible opportunity, was so cool. I'm so happy for Bob. We only know him a tiny bit, but my gosh, that was awesome to just see so many people talking about how special he is.
Yeah, the last thing I would say is go read what Black folks wrote about their experience with the event. I talked a little bit with Clinton Yates this week in front of the show, and like, sense I get from him is, it's heavy, emotional, worthwhile, difficult, inspiring, exhausting, all of those things rolled into one. Just go read what Clinton wrote. Go read the things that Black writers who are there wrote. As a whole, I'm glad this event happened. I think it was a positive thing. I'll be interested to see if they continue doing it in the future and how they, continue to celebrate, commemorate, and memorialize, what the Negro Leagues was and meant to so many different people. The Cardinals won 6-5.
They did get a good game, right?
It was a good game.
It was a pretty good game. They got a Elliot Ramos home run, possibly already the second greatest center fielder in Giants history, based on his last few weeks.
Wait,
but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah,
time out. We love Jason Stark on the show. Did you see Jason's tweet?
I did not.
It was basically like Willie Mays played with Edgar Martinez played with Ichiro, or like Willie Mays played with someone who played with Edgar Martinez, who played with Ichiro, who played with Tim Beckham, who played with Blake Snell, who played with Heliot Ramos. And I was like, I love you, Jason. That's like 2 or 3 links too many for the tweet.
Oh, baseball. If people haven't used the baseball reference, or I haven't used that in a while, but
yeah,
that is one of the best internet tools where that you can tie anybody back to anybody.
Right.
All right. That is, again, like I am excited to continue to consume content from that since I was not able to watch it live. But that is our recap. And if you had any other thoughts, let us know. baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. All right, Jake. Now let us transition to kind of our wrap up of our MLB Draft Combine coverage. We did over a dozen interviews with players who, all of which could go in the first round, which is a really exciting opportunity while we were down in Phoenix. And we'll have more coverage, some written stuff coming out. So just keep an eye out for that. So we'll save a full conversation about it since you are in a Menards parking lot, and just set up the interview that you are about to hear with Iowa right-hander Brody Brecht. And this is one that wanted to,
a gentleman who I feel has been in a Menards parking lot. Like Brody Brecht has been in a Menards parking lot. I feel pretty good.
He saved big money at Menards, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think that's happened for him? Brody Brecht was a very, very promising football prospect out of high school in Iowa, Ankeny, Iowa, and he had big dreams. I'll talk about him, to play football at a bigger school, whether it was Ohio State or somewhere else. But by the end of his senior year, he was set on going to play football and baseball at Iowa. And at the very end of his senior year in Iowa, he was throwing baseballs very, very, very hard, to the point where I remember in the days leading up to the draft, at the time, it was like, teams want to pay Brody Brecht like $3 million. I was like, wait, what? Like, what? This dude who's like just started throwing, like, what is going on here? He ends up going to Iowa.
He's just learning the rules.
It's just like, what is happening here? And so he goes to Iowa, and he has had quite the career there. It's had some ups, it's had some downs. It's had a whole bunch of walks and even more strikeouts. He is ridiculously gifted from a pure stuff standpoint. And you are going to hear him kind of talk about the decision to drop football, the business decision to officially drop football, focus on baseball this year. It was not smooth sailing for the first start of the season, but listening to him talk about the adjustments he made in the middle of the year to finish really strong and put himself in consideration to be a top half of the first round pick. There's a lot of risk with Brody Brecht for a lot of reasons, but the person and the competitor and the talent is undeniable, and I'm excited for people to hear this conversation with him. Any final thoughts before we kick to the interview?
If you missed Jeff Samardzija, well, I got good news for you.
We'll be right back with our conversation with Brody Brecht. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. We are now very excited to be joined by Iowa's own Brody Brecht. Brody, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. How you doing?
The pride of the Hawkeye State.
Yes. So you talk to kids.
My first question, you got a lot of tats on that arm.
I do got a lot of tats.
Any Iowa-related ink?
Ooh. Negative.
Not yet.
Not yet. Should I get a Tiger Hawk right here? I still got to finish the sleeve, so maybe I'll get a Tiger Hawk or something.
Well, I was going to say, it feels like Iowa, born and raised, right? Like the dream, you lived out the dream to go play at Iowa, play football at Iowa, play baseball at Iowa. I mean, was there an ounce at any point along as you're growing up 13, 14 that you are going to leave Iowa to play college sports? Was there ever a doubt?
Yeah, well, like just like football, like Ohio State, I would say was like my football dream school. Like I wanted to go to Ohio State, especially like being a receiver. I mean, they got countless dudes just year after year first rounders. So I didn't get an offer from Ohio State, so
it worked out.
Yeah. But I mean, like I always loved Texas. Like like UT. Like I thought their colors were sick.
Sure.
Like,
colors. Like, it's amazing how much.
I fell in love with UNC as a kid.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I love UNC. Well, we played them in a regional last year at Indiana State Regional, and in the dugout, we're just like,
damn,
dude, those unis are so sick. Like Forbes got the Jordans on. We're like, oh man, that's so nice.
And you guys at Iowa have a great set. That's a great set.
We do. No, it's nice. It's nice. Yeah.
That's so we first saw you last year. At the Round Rock invitation, we saw you guys had these alt hats. But I was like, these are sweet.
Oh yeah.
So we were, again, but you're used to it. You've grown up with Iowa, so it's like you're kind of numb
to it. You get used to it. Yeah.
You're like, of course, whatever. That's Hawkeyes. That's the stuff. But I am curious. Again, as we've alluded to, you mentioned your dream was to play football at Ohio State or maybe Texas, whatever. Football and baseball. That's the Brody Brecht story as we've learned. But we've talked to a couple other guys today who've had football, baseball backgrounds, but we're curious, what sports do you kind of suck at?
Yeah, was there anything you
because
were
clearly
bad at?
baseball and baseball.
I'm trying to get the golf game improved right now.
So
Okay.
when you say improved, oh my God, you must hit the driver so far.
No, I mean I smoke it, but it's sure. I mean, is it straight?
No.
Maybe every once in a while.
And your short game is probably just buns right now.
Yeah, I can't chip.
But
for
let's
anything.
we got to rewind further.
Yeah,
what
sorry.
about when you're younger? I mean, is it,
I gave soccer a shot. I didn't really like it. Like
Okay.
I like the hand, like
Hand eye.
Yeah. I didn't like
don't
just
wanna
like
be
running and
kicking.
kicking. Like I wanted to use my hands
Yeah.
and like catch something.
Fair enough.
I'll say basketball. I wasn't I'm not really a shooter. Like I was
Oh.
like paint beast.
Were you
defensive
more
anchor.
of a like an
dirty
enforcer?
work? Dirty work. Like that was my specialty.
It's not
Brecht man gets paid.
It's not showing up in the box score. You're not
It's the hustle
necessarily
plays, man. I'm
it's
there.
It's
I'm
the hustle.
there.
You're a winning ball player.
You want me on your team? I'm Draymond Green, baby.
you can throw down?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I used to like when I was playing football. I used to like really throw down.
You could really,
but now I don't. Like I don't like. I mean, like I don't really go now, and I put on a little bit of weight after football.
Okay,
so.
but when
Yeah,
did
you look
not as
you look
explosive.
so
But when did you
fast.
dunk? When did you dunk for the first time?
I think my freshman year of high school was the
Okay.
first time I dunked.
Okay,
But then I like stopped. So I didn't play basketball in my high. So like I played like up until my freshman year. So like that summer. But then I didn't play like in high school, so like I dunked then, and I like really didn't even like try again until like my sophomore year.
Okay, so you mentioned football, and football for you is kind of such a major part of the story. You go to Iowa to play two sports at the same time.
Yeah.
And when you're in high school and you're like, I want to go play two sports at the same time, how did your expectation of what it was going to be differ from what it actually was?
Yeah. Well, so me, like, I mean, I always stayed busy my whole life. Like, I was always, I was football, right into basketball, and then right into, track, baseball, and baseball went through the summer again. So, and then my high school year, I wanted to take a break a little bit. I wanted like a, time. So I stopped playing basketball, focused on baseball and football, and I ran track just to, stay in shape, stay fast, whatever. And so like when I was going into college, like I thought it was kind of I feel like I did a really good job balancing it in high school and whatever. But college is a whole nother like deal, like just with how much they ask of you, especially at that level. And Iowa football, they're it's tough workouts. Like that's kind of their edge. The Iowa edge is like going into deep waters. That's kind of what they say. And so I think I wasn't expecting it that much of a grind from the football side of things, and just how long and how much more film study it takes and that stuff. So I think that was definitely a wake up call, especially that first semester, and learning like a actual pro playbook, like because it's not like high school. We were air
High school's like give Brody the rock, throw it
run it
up.
deep and throw it up, and we're there. But yeah, so I mean, like learning a new playbook, like that's something I never had to do. Like I was like football, I mean, same playbook for 4 years. Like it was, really easy, really simple. Like so, it was definitely something I had to get used to.
Well, it's also you turn the clock back to a guy like Bo Jackson, right? Whenever we think about two sports, it's Bo. The level of competition in both of those sports when he was playing was lower than what it is now.
Yeah.
Where having year-long specialization in whatever you're doing is almost vital to being the best version of yourself, right? Like,
you have to.
Especially for pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it before we started recording, not being able to focus on your development as a pitcher in the fall and not being able to focus on your development as a wide receiver in the spring is going to stunt your ceiling in both of those things.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I always wonder, what if I would have played baseball for 3 full years? What if I would have played football for 3 full years? Where would I be? But at the end of the day, this was God's plan for me, and I'm really, I wouldn't change anything that's happened. But like you said, like I've always wondered, what if I, would have just played football? Because like you said, like it's like I never the first 2 years of baseball, I never had opportunity to work on mechanics. Like it was always like get the arm up in January and let's throw mid-February. That's what it was. We were going, and then like in football. Like my freshman year, I tried to grind it out, tried to do, spring ball, tried to do both. Body broke down, couldn't really do it. It was late night. Like it was just
and
tired.
you have to pass classes.
Yeah, no,
right?
yeah,
Like it is a school.
Damn it.
Like Brody, it is also a school, right? Like,
Yeah.
Most people go to college. It's college. But you're right. You're balancing all that. Now, again, you fast forward to now, this past season, you were able to focus on baseball full time.
I want to ask about the decision specific.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sure a ton of time and effort and consideration and conversation went into making that decision. The day that you actually made it, when it went out, when you announced it, I remember the graphic on Twitter that you posted, right? When that went out and you got the response, how was that different from what you thought? Like, walk me through that day of what frankly was so far the biggest decision you've ever had to make in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people like thought it was like a super easy decision. Like, oh, he's gonna go play baseball. He's gonna go to the MLB. Like, it was a super easy decision for me. Like, it was the hardest decision for me. Like, even going out of high school, like, you know, where I want to go to college, you know, draft or, you know, go to Iowa. Like, it was like I thought that was a hard decision. This was the hardest decision by far. Just like I told you guys earlier, like, football is and probably always will be like my first love. Like, that's has always been my dream. And so you had to weigh your options. Like, do I want to do something that I really, really love, or do I want to pursue what I think I can be great at? And so it was just kind of weighing that was just super difficult for me. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, I've always wanted to, you know, be a professional athlete, and I've always wanted to be the best. And so when I look at the two roads, I'm like, you know, which one's more realistic? Where can we go? And, you know, obviously, you know, leaning towards the baseball route.
Here you are.
Here I am.
At the MLB Draft Combine.
Yeah, wrong combine. This is actually Phoenix and not Indy. Come on.
Oh, shoot. Wrong fight.
Yeah, I got the wrong play. But again, and we haven't said this out loud on this interview, so for people who are listening, part of the reason you are here is because you throw really hard. Now, when we say really hard, people's brains as baseball fans, we have a different perspective on that now, right? Everyone in the majors feels like they throw 95. Brody Brecht, Jordan, is a different thing.
Yeah, and I just remember, you know, high school senior year, because, again, you have all this other stuff going on with the football. It happened pretty late. And I remember, I don't know if the velocity popped that season, but walk me through kind of that transformation.
So I think, junior year, sophomore year, I was like, I think 90, 93. And then junior year, that's kind of when it kind of started to pick up a little bit. That's when I was like kind of 2 to 4, touch of 5, but you
weren't sitting at 6, 7 innings.
But then in the state semifinals, I pitched against or state quarterfinals, I pitched against Pleasant Valley, and the adrenaline must have been flowing. I was like,
as a junior,
I was 95, 97, hit at 8. Like, I mean, I hadn't really done that all year, and so that kind of like just popped up. And then like that winter, I got a DM from a Diamondback scout, and I was like, you know, what is this? Like, because I mean, my mind was set on going to Iowa, right? So I never even thought about that. So like everything happened super late. So then it was like that January, February, you know, I threw a couple pens for teams and whatnot, and then that kind of summer, everything kind of just exploded.
But that's the big difference, and that's why your story is so interesting in that high school timeline is because you're in Iowa. The games aren't starting until April, right?
Like end of May.
In May, right? And so
if this dude is in Orlando,
that's the thing. It's a very different story because now you have months and months of like what we're seeing that. Now, to that point though, I'm so curious. You keep mentioning, you know, that love for football, whenever. Obviously, that maybe that'll always be there, right? But as this is happening, as you're throwing harder in the mound, you're kind of figuring yourself out as a pitcher. I imagine now you start to think about, oh, wait a minute, now this actually might be my path. So when does that start to click for you? Is it in high school at that point? Is it not until you get to Iowa?
No, I don't think it. I mean, I really don't even think it was probably till. I mean, really since like after my sophomore year of football at Iowa, I think that's really when I started to like, you know, like, dude, I kind of want to do this baseball thing. Like, I think this can be something, right? And I mean, now, I like every single day, my love for baseball grows, like,
for sure.
And it's not even more so it's just like the competing aspect of it, like just the day to day. Like for me, like football, you know, it's once a week. You know, one game you're out there. Like baseball, it's every 5 days. You know, you're getting going, and I don't know. I just love competing, and you know, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, golf, whatever. I'm gonna tear your head off to win.
Where was your first 100? Okay, because I think what is most interesting about you as a player is that a lot of guys throw 100, very few sit 100, right? That's a very short list, particularly at the college level. Again, Paul Skeens has worked all of our brains. You know, you saw him in person last year. We were there. I mean, it's a different thing, right?
It's wild.
But you're sitting 100. But where were you when you hit triple digits for the very first time?
It was my first live set at Iowa my freshman year.
Okay. All right. Who's this guy I think he is? He's a football guy. All right.
So is this in the
fall?
No, it couldn't have been in the fall.
So January. So I think
like inside.
I threw a bullpen in December, and I think I was like 95, 96, and then I threw like 2 more bullpens before our first live set. So this would have been like middle of January.
But you're inside. It's all inside.
Yeah, we're inside, and so I was like, I think I was. Like 6, 7, touch of 8 or whatever.
And none of the guys really know you too well. I mean, you had
I'm sure interacted with some of the baseball guys outside of the field, but you're not
I really didn't
around.
know, other than like the guys in my class, I really didn't know a whole lot or whatever. But then
this is freshman.
yeah, but then yeah, I mean, first live set, like first pitch was like 101 point, or not 101, it was like 100.4 or something. Like
in January?
Yeah. And then freshman year was actually like the hardest I was
You were really?
Like, because I was like coming out the pen, only throwing
Sure. It was a little different.
2 innings at a time or whatever, so I was sitting,
But but you mentioned, and that evolution and what you refer to as the love for baseball growing, but the love for competing, that's clearly been there your whole life, right? And you had that in high school. You had the opportunity to compete there. But I think back to when we saw you in that outing that you had in Round Rock, which you probably remember, was one of the more memorable ones because
it was against LSU.
It was the most dominant 8-walk performance I've ever seen.
Crazy.
Okay, and
ridiculous.
So, but when we watch and we think about that, and we think about the progress that you made, particularly this season, when you have the opportunity to really figure it out, and every start you're learning on the fly because again, you haven't had those reps in the fall, you haven't had those that. I imagine that's just like fun, like because it's almost this experimental is maybe not the right word, but is that what it felt like when you're really learning it as you go?
My little sister had a milk allergy, not lactose intolerant, like a bad milk allergy until she was like 13. And then it went away as she grew up. And then we had like these 3 to 4 years where she was just trying random dairy stuff. It's like, like cheddar is crazy.
To that point, for you, is it like every week you get out there and it's like, all right,
cool.
So I'm learning this. Is that kind of how it was over those last couple of years?
I mean, like just like this being my first full year of baseball, like I just feel like I'm scratching the surface. Like each time I go out there, like I feel like there's something, like you said, new I learned about myself.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I love it. Like I started, like, and I really do feel like I'm just scratching the surface. Like I started, like the last 5 weeks of the year, I started meeting with a mental performance coach named Brian Kane, and he works with like a lot of, top guys, and like. I mean, I really felt like I was the best pitcher in the country the last 5 weeks.
And you can see that. And you look at the game logs, you can say, oh, Brody's figuring it out.
Exactly.
Brody's figuring it out. And it seems like that is what that felt
and
like.
I feel like I started the year pretty strong, and then I had like a, kind of that middle third of the season. Like that's kind of when I struggled a little bit. Like, my arm path was kind of, getting a little different. My slider was kind of getting backed up, and so I kind of really had to, kind of throw up my splitter a lot, just kind of spam that because my slider was getting backed up and it was getting hit. And, as much as it sucked, like, not going out there and just shoving and dominating like I wanted to, like, I'm really glad I went through it because I, had to just throw the splitter, and I developed that third
the other pitch had to learn.
And instead of throwing it, 3 times a game, or 4% of the time, I'm throwing it, 13, 14, 15% of the time, it's like an actual, pitch for me. Right. And
wait till you get into low A.
I know.
It's going to be all splitters.
But that's a great transition to, I think, my last question for you, which is, as you mentioned, you feel like you're just scratching the surface. And I think that is why teams, are excited about you. And I have to imagine that's why you're excited to start your pro career, because what are the possibilities, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So is that,
you're a college guy, but you're also not in a way, because there's less mileage on the arm, and you just have spent less time committing to baseball, but yet I'm here talking to you, and no offense to the high school kids who sat in this chair, like, he's clearly more mature and has spent more time thinking about competing, and like you've lived a life. And so I would imagine that once you go to, some random corner of America to face minor league hitters, like you feel prepared for that.
No, I do. I feel extremely confident right now. I mean, just, watching the World Series, watching these guys out here, man, I got that itch to like go out there and play, like, and just like riding off the momentum in the last 5 weeks and just continue to, stick to my process of what I've been doing, when I was working with Brian, and like, I just really just want to carry that and keep it going and just, use that throughout, my career really.
So my last question for you, as someone who, played college athletics at Iowa this past year, what was the Iowa women's basketball experience like this year?
I mean,
it was unlike anything.
It was crazy. I mean,
ever.
Not only what Caitlin did just for Iowa, but like women's basketball, women's sports, like just everything. Like, I mean, it was crazy. You got, Nolan Ryan going to a game. You got Travis Scott. Nolan Ryan and Travis Scott were when she broke the record. And she pulled up from
what a combo.
Half court.
That's honestly a great example of like the cultural impact.
It's
right?
crazy.
It's like the range of people that want to experience.
How many games did you get to go to?
I actually didn't go to any. I would watch. It was crazy
because it was
crazy busy.
Could you not?
I mean, I probably
Make
could
a
have.
phone call?
I wanted to watch it on TV, man.
That's
like
fair.
it
was pretty impressive.
I mean, and the tickets are like,
a little ridiculous.
like
Come on, you got
$500
it. You got to be
a bonus yet. No,
He can say, I'm bro. I know some people here, and can we pull some strings? We can't get Brody in the building.
Can we like make him an award to give him at halftime?
Well,
no, but I mean, no. It was a lot of fun to watch. It was awesome.
Especially also as like a Iowa born and raised athlete that she also
well,
is.
And
right?
Caitlin
Like,
was too. I mean,
exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I imagine
it's just
crazy.
well, like I mean, I grew like my fiance, like she played against Caitlin in high school. Like so, I was like seeing Caitlin in high school. She's Gardner, and I'm like, who's that?
So you knew you're like, this is.
I'm
not.
like, whoa. I'm like,
She's shooting from really far away.
Like I mean, like you could tell she was the best player on the court, and I was like, who's this? And like she was like number 4 player in the country. And I'm like, oh, like where's she going? Like UConn, and they're like, she's going to Iowa, and I was like. She's going to Iowa? I'm like, all right, let's see what happens.
Like, I'm going to Iowa.
And I'm like, yeah, no, it's like, I mean, now you got 2, national championship appearances, in a row, all-time scoring. I mean, it's crazy.
And that's the really cool thing is it's just the beginning, right? I mean, I was lucky enough. I went to her home debut in Indiana.
Yeah,
and it's
just,
unlike anything else.
She just brings like a whole new like fan base. Like I think it's awesome for the sport and.
Hey, you're the Hawkeye, man. This is Brody. You got to keep that momentum. No pressure.
Yep.
No pressure. It's probably less pressure. I mean, on one hand, it'd be like, man, wouldn't it be so cool if everyone was talking about Brody Brecht all the time, the way they are about Caitlin Clark? Honestly, let's spare you that.
Stephen A. Let's keep it on Caitlin.
Everything like. She's having to deal with media, with players, targeting her or whatever it is. Like, I mean. And like for her to always take the high road, I mean,
dude, we were talking about it. We were talking about it earlier, like how she's not on the Olympic team, and we were like, I would want a nap if I was. She goes in from her full college season. Reaches the final game of the year. It's like what 3 weeks WNBA season starts.
2 preseason games. All right,
get on in there.
No, I know.
If I was Caitlin, I'm going to like Cabo and doing nothing.
Leave me alone.
I watched the first take episode of Stephen A. and Shannon. They're just ripping the Team USA committee. They're like,
what are we doing?
Like they watch her, like right, I mean, just you want to grow the sport, you want to grow everything. Like, why is she not like? That's the person.
I get it. Like, if I was Caitlin, I'd be like, "Thank you so much."
Can you imagine, man?
I need a nap.
Can you imagine, like every start you had this year, people are talking for 30 minutes about that walk you had in the 3rd inning?
No, I know. Like, it's great. I mean, she's always under just a mic, like just the smallest detail. I mean, she could drop 30, 10, and 5, and she's got 3-4 turnovers, and everybody's
like,
she's inefficient, or it's like.
Hey, we're talking about her though, but she can handle it.
Damn, it worked again.
Brody Brecht, this has been a delight.
No,
good luck with whatever wherever is next for you. We're excited to see.
Dude,
as you said, scratching the surface.
If you change your mind tomorrow and you want to do football, I'll even watch. I don't like football.
We'll see.
Brody Brecht, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you guys. It was a blast. Thank you.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Jake Mintz, Jordan Shusterman. Let's boot it up right away. Let's not beat around those bushes. The good, the bad, the Uggla. One thing good, one thing bad, one thing Uggla. Jordan, but a quick story, actually. I was standing outside the Omaha Hotel, and I was approached by a member of the Omaha SWAT team, because there's so many people around that they like bring in SWAT to help with crowd control. And he comes up to me and goes, "Are you Jake?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Love the pod. I particularly like the good, the bad, and the Uggla." So this edition is for the guy whose name I didn't get outside the Omaha Hilton. Thanks, dude.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for listening to Baseball Barbacast. We begin with the good, and I'm going to start with Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill is on one hell of a heater. He has 6 home runs in his last 8 games. He had 5 home runs in 46 AA games last year. This kind of talent, when it's clicking, this is also why you bet on guys who know how to hit, even if they're skinny kids from Maryland, is the power will come. And when talent is this good, it can all happen a lot faster than you are. It really can just, you can wake up and be like, oh, wait, suddenly he's an all-star level player. And this outfield that the Padres have now is the best in the league. It's production wise, it's kind of hard to dispute. I'm pretty sure. But with what Profar has been doing, of course, Tatis has really kind of resurged to MVP kind of caliber. But man, Merrill right now, he's just turned 21, earlier this season. He's one of the youngest players in baseball, playing a position he never played before. And now he's hitting for power. He's a really fun player, really confident player. And I'm excited for more people to learn about Jackson Merrill.
Good pick. Look, we all grow up. I'm still waiting to grow into that power. You, Jordan, another skinny kid from Maryland, the power really never actualized, though.
Yeah. Sorry, Yankees fans are like, we're the best outfield. That's fair. Let's move Aaron Judge and Juan Soto to the side. Other than that,
Can't do
Padres. Other than that, Padres, best outfield. Okay. Sorry. What's your good?
My good is this clip that I saw on the internet machine of a bunch of elementary school kids reacting to a Bryce Harper home run. So Penn holds a baseball camp, as many colleges do on their campus. And this appears that it was during lunchtime this week when Philly talisman, not a word these kids know, Bryce Harper launched a home run.
At Penn.
The kids at Penn might know talisman. Anyway, Harper homers around lunchtime. They have the game on, and the little twerps are going absolutely crazy. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up, why this is good, it really struck a chord for me. Jordan, you and I spent our summers in high school and in college coaching kids very similar to this, like at a camp in DC, where the most difficult part of the experience as a camp counselor for baseball kids was what, Jordan? Lunchtime.
Lunch. Yep.
Right?
But everything that wasn't baseball.
Everything that wasn't baseball. Like I can hit fungos for 10 hours, but lunch, oof. And the reaction of these kids just going totally bonkers for Bryce Harper, having just consumed the sugary dessert portion of their midday meal, is just sensational stuff and really brought me back. And like, let's more baseball camps with TVs. That is all I have to say.
Have the game on. I like that. That is very good. What's your bad? We'll snake draft this one. What's your bad?
The Shohei Ohtani shoes.
I want to say it to his face.
It would probably be hard to get.
Suck.
Well, one, it would be hard to get the opportunity.
If you did.
One-on-one. Hey, Will Ireton, can you translate for me and let Shohei know his signature shoes are bad? The second thing is Shohei Ohtani certainly did not play a significant role in designing these shoes. The SO1s, as they're called, brought to you by New Balance, who, by the way, no free ads, but like I wear New Balance. My everyday shoes are New Balances. So like, I'm not trying to hate, but these shoes are just kind of boring, really. We shouldn't be surprised. Like the press release / article thing that went up on MLB.com talked about how Ohtani was very concerned about how the shoe felt in terms of how it allowed him to connect to the ground. Like, I really believe that.
I
totally believe. Like, I totally believe that. However, it also made mention that he does not care about the stylistic aspects of it. Which is very funny.
Why would he? I wasn't going to buy these anyway. What difference does it make? This is the thing. I think this is great feel from Ohtani. He's like, listen, if I'm going to wear these, they got to feel good. Otherwise, I don't care because I'm Shohei Ohtani and everyone's going to buy these anyway. So it makes no difference.
Maybe calling this bad is overly simplistic, but let's get a little bit more pizzazz on these things,
Okay. Fair enough. My bad is a little bit unfortunate because who is a player that it's not Uggla, right? I wish it was Uggla. But it's bad. It's Nolan Gorman. We've referred to Nolan Gorman as
he's been in every category. He's been in every
category. Exactly. He is, Gen Z Dan Uggla, but sometimes he's really good. And he was really good. I thought he had turned it around. He had a crazy hot stretch at the end of May where he was homering every other day. Since June 5th, oh my gosh, he has 5 for his last 57 with 24 strikeouts. And his OPS has now gone up 100 points and down 100 points, or 200 points over the span of 3 weeks. But that is the nature of Nolan Gorman. That is the experience that you are signing up for. Honestly, even more of a ridiculous level than Dan Uggla ever was. But it's okay. So I just wanted to force Nolan Gorman into yet another category in this segment.
The good, the bad, and the Gorman. I will take my Uggla now.
Go for it,
if that's okay.
Please.
And I'm going to read an email that I really enjoyed. This is from Jimmy. Jimmy says, "Hi, Jake and Jordan. I think we can all assume that any teams not at the top of the standings are knocking down doors. Of all the fast food chains trying to get a mascot to throw out the first pitch, what would your top pairings look like?" Jimmy is making reference to Grimace and his involvement with the New York Mets. Grimace threw out the first pitch for the Mets a little over a week ago. The Mets were I think 6-1 they were 6-0 in their first
games.
game.
A 7-game winning streak, I think. Yeah. And then they finally lost. Yep.
Yeah, in the post-Grimace era. McDonald's changed their profile picture on Twitter to Grimace and changed their bio to Mets Go Let's, right? McDonald's. Like this, we're not talking about like, a local chain.
Hold on. This is does McDonald's have more followers than the Mets on Twitter? Probably, right?
Yeah, of course they do. They probably have more followers than the Yankees.
4.7 million. So yeah, Yankees are at 3.8. Yep, McDonald's more fans than the Yankees. No, that part doesn't surprise me. I understand that. Billions served.
Right.
Billions served.
Billions served.
Soon to be trillions served, probably. Anyway, sorry. Continue. This email is very good.
So just to, I don't think I've really appreciated how big that got because I was like doing Omaha and then doing the Combine, but the McDonald's changed their bio, right? That's wild. The most obvious one here is that the Nats should get the Burger King out, right? If you're thinking about who the Mets' biggest competition is right now, it's probably the Nationals. The Phillies and the Braves are beyond them, for sure. The Nats should have the Burger King out for the next time they host the Mets at home. Now, it's a high-risk, high-reward play, right? If you bring the Burger King out and then you go like 0-5, it's a win for the Mets and McDonald's and an L for Burger King.
Yeah.
Now, the other option, maybe if you're Burger King, is you reach out to the Phillies, right? That's a more bankable situation. It's like, oh, well, if the Phillies have Burger King, you want to keep that in the division, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the Nats are a good one because like the Phillies are not concerned with the Mets.
No.
Lions
like the Phillies.
And sheep. Yeah, so like it would be you would be doing them a favor by acknowledging this and like participating in such stuff.
Yeah.
The Phillies do not need a goofy mascot to go on a winning streak.
No. The Marlins should call the Long John Silver's guy.
What's the law? Is this Long John Silver's have a guy?
Captain Long John? I don't know.
You're asking the wrong guy. I've never been there and never will. So there are a lot of fast food establishments you could have referenced. That is not one that I can officially comment on. That is a good email. We will, again, baseballbarbecast@gmail.com. Keep those coming. My Uggla is Pete Fairbanks. Now, Pete Fairbanks is honestly one of my favorite personalities in the game. He's someone that if he was not on the Rays, I think a lot more people would be aware of Pete Fairbanks. Pete Fairbanks has had some rough goes of it. Now, we've seen him talk about, he's had some interesting post games where he's been like, oh, I suck. No, he's had some blown games where they lose and it's a little bit somber. However, in the case of earlier this week, he blows the game and then the Rays still managed to win, including him going back out. But he gives this quote, which is good because then afterwards, when he's talking about the fact that he destroyed a stool in the Twins batting cage, it's funny as opposed to like, yikes, right? But the reason this is Uggla is that he said, basically, he was asked, Trisha Whitaker asked him, and again, this is like kind of funny because it's like, oh, haha, we won, who cares? Do we get to ask what you destroyed in the cage after that 3-run home run he allowed to Jose Miranda? And Pete Fairbanks is like, I owe the Twins a new IKEA stool. It no longer exists. I was like, why did he call it an IKEA stool? Like, was he saying that like the Twins, did he have a stool in mind that he was to recommend to replace it? Did he know it was IKEA? Like, what has happened? I know we joke no free ads all the time, and maybe this is what he wanted. Maybe he has a sneaky IKEA NIL deal. But like, what? I'm just curious about this very specific shout out here.
Two options. Mm-hmm. When he kicks the stool, it fell apart very easy. And because IKEA is usually assembled, right, by people and not by companies, he assumed that it was IKEA. Or maybe like he kicked it over and he saw it said like Schnurvenhe on like the bottom of the stool.
Oh,
he saw,
it like still had the sticker.
Yeah, that's one option. The other option, Jordan, is that he confused IKEA and Target because Target is a Minnesota-based company.
Yes,
famously.
Yes,
the Twins play at Target Field. I believe the Wolves play at the Target Center.
Yes,
like, Target is a Minnesota thing. And Target and IKEA are competitors in terms of the, here's some relatively cheap furniture game. Now, I think most people do know that IKEA is Swedish, right? Yes. And that is a vital part of it. However, I think it's totally possible that Pete Fairbanks, in a fit of fury, mixed up Target and IKEA.
And there's a lot of, Nordic folks in Minnesota. So that's another part of it, right? I don't know how if it's like more if IKEA is more prominent there than other parts of America. I have no idea because Target is the thing for sure. I don't know. I think it is more that like he recognized the stool as like an IKEA stool because IKEA furniture is something you do. It is something you can very easily recognize. I will say that. Like, but to your point too, I think it's especially if it breaks easily in your fit of rage. Maybe you know that this is that. So I think it was that he recognized it as IKEA and then decided to shout it out.
Wayfair, big opportunity here. A lot of references to corporations on this podcast, and so we're going to pull the plug. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Thank you to Andrew Hartz for producing. Thank you to Brody Brecht for joining us. Thank you to you, Jordan Schuster fan, or as my dad calls you, Jordan Schusterfish.
It's a reference we don't have to explain. I am excited to do a podcast with you next week, Jake, because like there's a lot of baseball happening and team related things that we have missed this week. We will get to that next week with our weekend recap with all that stuff. So thank you all for listening. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon.